Welcome to another edition of the Daily Deuce. I'm Gary Graves from just outside lovely Louisville, Kentucky, and in Maryland, my longtime friend, esteemed colleague, and wonderful basketball coach and humanitarian, John Webster. How are you, John?
Gary, I'm doing real good, man. Good times going on. We got through this cold, real cold weather last week. Today was a balmy 57.
Yes,
So,
indeed.
but we got rain the next couple of days, so we'll deal with that. Hey,
Yeah.
John Pitt, how you doing, man?
Doing good, guys. What's going on?
Nothing much.
Oh, whole lot, man. We're going to talk a little college football later, about the playoff picture being set. Let's see what else we got to talk about. We got baseball signings. Excuse me, one baseball signing that is pertinent to us who watched one Juan Soto. But first, we're going to lead off with NFL. John, take it away.
Well, exciting times. We're coming down the home stretch. Philadelphia looks like they're going to take the NFC East. They pulled out a tight one against the Carolina Panthers. Didn't play
Yeah.
their best game, but they wrapped it up. Saquon Barkley became the all-time leading rusher for Philadelphia. I think he's got a good chance to be the NFL MVP. What do you think, Gary, about Philadelphia right now?
Well, they're rounded into shape at the time that they need to be. Again, I think they finally figured out that it doesn't have to go all the time through Jalen Hurts, and they probably knew this at the beginning of the season. I think they were just trying to come up with some kind of combination. But I'm more impressed with Philly's defense than anything else. I mean, Saquon Barkley, I felt like was going to get his and eventually take that load off of Jalen, and they would come up with a combination that works. But I'm really impressed with that defense in terms of how they've been able to stop teams, just how they've been able to shut down the run, get a pass rush, do everything. I'm not quite there yet in terms of making them a serious Super Bowl contender because there's this team called the Detroit Lions that's still looking pretty good. So right now, again, they're probably my second choice, but they're playing really good ball now, and I think that they're going to give the Lions a push.
Well, we're going to come back to your comment about the Lions and the Eagles. We're going to come back at the end of this segment about that. But what about the Giants in that great game yesterday with them against the New Orleans Saints? A real exciting game.
That's one that was blacked out of my area, and from what I could tell, thank goodness for that. Uh, I mean, I don't know what to say about the New York Giants and just where that team is headed. I mean, Brian Dable, I mean, yeah, they're going to let him, play out the string, but that team just really shows nothing that gives me any kind of hope. I mean, neither New York team has given me any kind of hope for the present, let alone the future. And that's about all I can really say about New York. It's really sad because as much as we try to root for the Washington teams, or at least two-thirds of us on this try to root for the Washington teams, what what makes it so good is what makes it thrive is when the other teams in the division are doing well. It hurts as a football fan that Dallas is not up to snuff. It also hurts as a Washington fan that Dallas is not up to snuff. I'm glad for Philly because that's just what 90 miles up the road or 120 miles up the road. And yeah, so you still have a division rivalry there, but it's always better when everybody in that division is competitive. What the Giants are showing just gives me no hope, and it's kind of sad because New York deserves better.
Well, you mentioned the Cowboys, and we'll go to them next. They play the Bengals in a Monday night football game. They still believe they can make a run at the playoffs, Gary. What say you?
Well, mathematically, yeah, both teams are still mathematically in it. Uh, Realistically, I think the Bengals have a better chance, even though they've got to get hot like right now. And really, I'll be okay. Realistically, both of them pretty much out of it because with 5, 6 games left, you have to find lightning in a bottle, and they're just not going to find it. And even if they do find it, the best they can probably hope for is anything close to 500, maybe a game over 500, and that's still going to be worse than Philadelphia. Let's see, yeah, Philadelphia, the Rams, Detroit, Green Bay. I'm trying to think of Minnesota. I mean, you're looking at about 6 teams that are going to make the probably make the play. Oh, and of course Washington. Woo, how could I forget? Um, so you just hope that the Cowboys can just really salvage what's left and just have some kind of optimism heading into the offseason when they'll probably revamp the coaching staff and probably 70% of their roster because they have to. I think the only thing with Cincinnati in this case is they are exciting to watch. Keep in mind that they have lost, I think it's like almost all of their losses where they have scored 35 or more points. And I think they've lost by maybe I think it's like a 3 point margin, average loss margin of 3 points. So that just shows you how close they are. They just get into a track meet. Well, one, they get into, they dig holes early that they have to spend the rest of the game trying to come out of. And Joe Burrow is able to do it. He's having a fantastic year statistically, but that team just has to play from behind so much, and it's in more often than not, it's too little, too late.
And last but not least, our Washington Commanders. They're coming off a bye. This Sunday they're going to New Orleans. New Orleans is coming off a big win over the New York Football Giants. Can the Commanders finish strong and end up in the playoffs? I do not think they can win the division. The division is Philadelphia's, but can they make the playoffs? And what is the magical win number they will need to get there?
Well, to answer your second question first, John, I think 10 wins gets them in. I
Okay.
think they have a chance to do it. If they don't beat New Orleans, then we're looking at next year. And everything that I've said weeks ago about, oh, we'll take this, compared to these last 3 or 4 years, I'll take it. I will look at this year as a disappointment if they don't make the playoffs because they look like a playoff capable team and they should be able to get 10 wins out with the start that they got off to. You have to go to Dallas and beat them. Let's see, I'm trying to think. I don't know whether you can beat Philadelphia a second time, but beat the teams that you should beat first, and that starts with New Orleans, who somehow pulled one out on the Giants on Sunday. I think again that's a team that the Washington should beat them. Should get started. That'll give them 8 wins, and all you have to do is pull 2 more wins out to really assure yourselves a playoff berth or make those chances better. And I think they can do that.
Well, I think right now they're sitting at 8-5. They got Philadelphia, New Orleans, Atlanta, and Dallas left. If they win this week, they're 9-5. They have I'm trying to think who's behind them. Dallas is behind them. I can't think of who else is behind them right now. Dallas is behind them by 2 games. So I'm hoping they can continue on the path that they're on. I'm hoping that they can get a big win over New Orleans this week and don't hang out too much down on Bourbon Street and just take care of business and then come back here. Now, you mentioned the Detroit Lions. Who would ever thought we're talking about the Detroit Lions in a sense of home field advantage in the playoffs, NFC Championship, and much less the Super Bowl? Who would have thought, Gary? But you also mentioned Philadelphia in the same breath. Gary, one question. First, a couple questions. One, Can Detroit hold on to the home field advantage? That's the first question. And whether they do or they don't, could they beat Green Bay again for a third time? And how would they match up against the Philadelphia Eagles?
Okay, let's see. I'm going to say yes to all of them. I think they can. I think they can clinch home field. They're playing too well right now not to. And of course, when you get to this part of the season, there's this feeling that, yeah, you have to lose one to kind of maybe do a reset, not get, not peak too soon. I don't believe in that. I don't think Dan Campbell believes in that. I don't think the Detroit Lions believe in that because they are playing very well. As we saw in that Thursday night win over the Green Bay Packers, my Green Bay Packers, that what they have, John, is a killer instinct or
Mhm.
a finishing instinct that they didn't have. It took last year to develop it. I think what happened against Dallas sparked something in them where right now, you have to figure out a way to stop the Lions because the Lions can look at a deficit and just say, look, all we've got to do is keep handing the ball off to either one of those running backs and we can win this game. You don't necessarily need Jared Goff, even though he's doing, and I hate to use that term game manager, but he's doing enough on his own to complement that running game. They can pretty much move the ball at will. And that's something that a lot of teams, including the Philadelphia Eagles, have to figure out a way to slow them down. I don't know if you can stop them, but you have to slow them down. And that's a difficult task right now, even with Philadelphia's defense playing well.
Okay. Very interesting. Now,
What's your take on that, though?
my take on it is this. And then we make it quick, and then we got to go. I want to ask you about the AFC real quick before we miss our next segment. My take on it quickly is I think it's very hard to beat a team three times in one season. I think if they play Green Bay again, I think Green Bay has a very good shot at beating them. I like Philadelphia a little bit more than I like Detroit. I think Detroit has a lot of injuries, and I think it's going to catch up with them. But I think the one thing that is going to catch up with them more than anything else, as much as I enjoy Dan Campbell, as much as I think he is an old school tough guy coach, and I love that, his continual obsession with going for fourth downs no matter what is going to catch up to him at the wrong time.
Yeah, that is a concern because at some point you do have to go by the book when it comes to, down and distance, especially fourth down and distance. And I always feel like some team, it might be Green Bay, it probably will be Philadelphia that will put eight in the box and they will have every angle covered. You have to figure out what next if they're gonna do that. But really, you have to be smart about it. And football, John, as we know, is a field position game. And they're just sometimes, where punting is not a bad thing. As much as you want to be a gambler and look like a gambler and be daring, punting is not a bad thing if it pins the team, if it pins the opposition back. You've got a defense that can get the ball back, even with some of those injuries, and then just again just turn it loose on that offense, but don't take points off the board as happens sometimes when you gamble on fourth down.
My last question, my friend, and then we move on to talk about the college football playoffs. Do the Kansas City Chiefs repeat?
No, because John, it is very, very difficult for teams to repeat. We're talking about a three-peat. And I
Mm-hmm.
can't even think about the last time that's happened. Certainly not in the Super Bowl era. I can't think about it. I don't even know if a team has gotten, well, no, I take that back because the Buffalo Bills did go to four straight Super Bowls. But it's very, very hard. And Kansas City, as Sunday indicated, I mean, like until that ball, bounced through the uprights, when it doinked off the upright, I was like, oh my God, he's gonna miss it. And then then it hit and then it goes through. You can't keep living precariously or vicariously, through whatever kicker you've got in there. I think what they said last night that they're on their third kicker. You can't gamble that much and expect to get to a Super Bowl. Pittsburgh is still, I think, the team you've got to watch in that conference. Buffalo lost yesterday. That loss might end up helping them because that really was a good game. Speaking of the Rams, in the NFC, but Pittsburgh to me is the team that I would not want to face if I'm the Kansas City Chiefs, be it a second round game, a divisional game, or the conference championship, because I don't think Pittsburgh knows really how good they can be. I think they know how good they are right now, but there's still a lot more. We're seeing a different gear from Russell Wilson. We're seeing a defense that basically can shut down any opponent that they face now. And even though they have to play Baltimore again, they can, they've already shown what they can do against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. I think the Ravens need to figure out a reset for next season. I think it's Pittsburgh's. I think really this conference is Pittsburgh's to lose because they are playing solidly throughout right now and they're consistent.
Very good points, Gary. Now let's move on into college football. The NCAA college
Mm.
football playoffs and the brackets came out. What do you think about the brackets, Gary? Is it fair that Alabama's out and SMU is in? Are the brackets tilted too much so it makes it harder for Oregon to get to the championship game than it is for Georgia
Penn
to get to the
State.
championship game? Talk to me, Gary.
All right. Let's see. First thing, yes, they were right to leave Alabama out and put SMU in because if you watch that ACC championship game, they look down and out. But then here they come. They become the Pony Express. They get back in the game and they lose on really probably one of the best field goals, game-winning field goals I think I've ever seen a team kick to win a game like that.
Gary, I have to ask you one question. You said they look like the Pony Express. Does that Pony Express include $100 and $500 handshakes, or is that without?
I don't think it, because we're in the age of NIL, and I saw a story today that said that stands for now it's legal. So I think, I, hey, it's a good point, great
Yeah.
line. But I mean, $100 handshake, that's a cup of coffee these days, John. Uh, Either way, and it's what's funny about SMU. What I'm glad about them getting in is that they weren't penalized for losing in their conference championship game,
Mm-hmm.
and that says something maybe about not just about SMU, but maybe about the quality of the ACC because I really would have thought that they would be a one team or one bid league if SMU had won. I couldn't see Clemson getting in. I couldn't see Miami getting in if SMU had won that game. But Clemson might have done that conference and SMU a favor by winning on that field goal because it gave them the guaranteed spot as a conference champion. And SMU was just good enough to show how they played well enough in a game that mattered against a ranked foe to get in. Unlike Alabama, which I think they were done when they lost to Oklahoma by 21 on the road. And you don't really hear too much complaining coming out of Tuscaloosa today or this week because I think they've known it for several weeks now. When they lost that game, that pretty much did them in because you have to explain to the committee how you lose to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma on the road
In the same season.
in the same season. So
Texas and Clemson. How do you think that game comes out? What do you think? Do you think it's going to be Clemson can step in there and play with Texas? Or do you think Texas is going to be perturbed with their overtime loss to Georgia and they're going to steamroll Clemson?
I think they can beat Clemson, steamrolling them. I'm not sure, but I'll say this. Texas's biggest nemesis right now is Georgia. Georgia has proven that twice now. They proved it, I want to say almost decisively in that title game, even though it came down to an overtime touchdown. And by that I mean they were in control of that game. It wasn't a high scoring game, but they always seemed like a team that when they had the ball that they could score. And
Mm-hmm.
Texas had been knocked back on its heels. Texas had to counterpunch a lot to get back in that game and chip away. I really, even though it was a low scoring game, I like the way that it played out because both quarterbacks, both coaches really played it smart. And when Texas had to settle for a field goal in overtime, that's when I really felt like Georgia had the potential to win, even with a backup quarterback. And keep in mind, when they won that game with Carson Beck in there handing off on that one play with his wrist, he's dangling it down. But when it mattered, John, all he had to do was hand off, and that's I mean that's all you need sometimes just for that one play. And he's got 3 weeks to heal now.
What do you think, Ohio State, Tennessee?
Ooh. I'm looking at Tennessee right now, and as an Ohio State fan, I am very disappointed in what they did in the game against that team up north. And I mean, really disappointed. Um, for a minute after that game, I was among those reading the social media comments and thinking, it might be time for Ryan Day to go. Of course, I've backed off of that. I've gotten over that disappointment. But Ohio State can beat everybody else right now except Michigan, and maybe Oregon as they lost to them earlier in the season. But I don't have a lot of faith in them right now because they just seem a little off. Now they might rise to the occasion hosting a game against Tennessee, but Tennessee can move the ball. I think that they have the potential to make Ohio State have to play from behind.
Okay.
And that's what I feel like Ohio State's biggest problem is right now, that if they can't score at will, if they have to settle for field goals, then that just shows they don't really have too much confidence in themselves offensively. Defensively, I think they can hang, but Tennessee it has shown Tennessee they beat Alabama, and you can say whatever about Alabama this year. I do think Alabama will be back as an aside, but Tennessee is a team that when they're clicking, they are very hard to stop. And going up there, you're only talking about maybe what 400 miles between that. They play in the same type of weather in November or December in this case. I don't think that that's going to be a big factor. And they'll travel well, even though they'll probably travel with maybe 3,500 fans. But I do think that's a game that Tennessee can win because I see a vulnerable Ohio State team on both sides of the ball, but particularly offensively.
Two games I need you to handicap for me real quickly. Penn State, I can't remember who they're playing against.
SMU.
Penn State, SMU, and say the best for last. Tell me what's going to happen also with Notre Dame and Indiana.
All right, John. Um, I like Notre Dame against Indiana, and I like Notre Dame because of how they're playing. I mean, since they've lost to Northern Illinois, I think they've run off what 8 straight wins. You probably know that better than me.
Gary, I don't want to talk about that.
no, but John, that was the attention getter. That was exactly what they needed, and they've responded, and they've responded against teams within their pseudo conference. They've responded against the teams that they've needed to beat. Um, and again, I think they're a team that's playing their best football at the right time of year in getting the number 5 seed. That
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, was
Number five. Them number five. Notre
yeah,
Dame's number
okay,
five.
okay, yeah,
No,
that
wait a minute. No, wait a minute. Five was Texas.
that's right. Five was five
Notre
was
Dame is
Texas.
seven. 7-10. Notre Dame
Yes,
seven. Because
okay.
Indiana's 10.
Yeah, yeah. Now, Indiana is the upstart. I'm not going to say anything about. I can't say anything bad about what Indiana has done, other than they have played their schedule and they have played their way into the playoffs. But again, they've never won this many games before. They're going to be in a whole different realm of postseason football that they have never encountered. And going north to South Bend, that's I really do think they're going to find out where they have to go to get to that next level. That's all I can really say about it. But I mean, Notre Dame is Notre Dame, and they're playing at home in the cold. And it might not be, again, that big a difference because both of them are used to playing in that kind of weather. Notre Dame more so because, well, they're Notre Dame, and Indiana has generally been out of any kind of contention before November. This is different. I don't. Again, they have to crawl before they walk, and they have to play the in-state team, which I think is a great way for them to be introduced to it. But I do think going up there and trying to beat Notre Dame with a team that's playing well and wants to advance and try to get to a warm weather game and finish this thing out. I think it's just too much favoring Notre Dame in that game.
Quick wrap. Quick wrap on this segment. Penn State, SMU. Quickly, what you got?
I like Penn State at home, not because of the weather, but I just think Penn State. They're just good at home, and SMU I think is probably the team you're going to have to watch in the ACC for several years. Like they're glad to be a Power Four conference team. They have the backing, much like Texas and Texas A&M, with alumni. But they again, they're a team that I think is on a whole different stage than Penn State, which is used to that, and I think it favors Penn State.
We're going to find out. Our final segment. We're going to switch it over to Major League Baseball.
Mm.
The winter baseball meetings started on Sunday. We had a major signing Sunday night. The one, the only Juan Soto has signed with the New York Mets. He has left the New York Yankees and gone to the New York Mets. What is your thoughts, Gary? And I think it's 15 years for $765 million.
Mm-hmm. That number is the one that really jumps out to me. Not that I'm surprised he could get that much, because the speculation has been for at least 2 years now that he really well. At first, they thought he could be the first $500 million baseball player. I mean, Shohei beat him to that. I mean, heck, he beat him to being a $700 million player. I can't say that the Mets overpaid for him, because again, when you're in New York, and whether you're the Mets or the Yankees, and you just got a fan base and a financial base where you can basically bid with the other top teams. What would we used to call that? Not salary cap, but the tax. The luxury tax
Luxury
teams, like
tax. Mm-hmm.
yeah, like the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Boston Red Sox. And so I'm not surprised that they're able to pay that kind of money. I don't think they really had to spend that kind of money, but Scott Boras, being the agent that he is, I mean, he's going to try to get the max value for his clients, and he got it for Juan Soto. I think Soto is a great addition for the Mets. That's one that I mean, it's the bat that they needed. Whether he's batting second or third in that lineup, he is definitely the bat that they need. And I don't think even with his average being, average, so to speak, that kid can, we've seen in Washington how hard that kid can hit the ball. I mean, we saw it last season with the Yankees, how well he can hit the ball. He's a pretty solid outfielder as well. And he's not even 26, and there are still a lot of years, where yeah, I mean, he still has a ceiling. So it's a good pickup for the Mets. I think they do need a complimentary bat around him, maybe in that top, in the top five, top half of that lineup, which I'm sure if they spend that kind of money, they're going to either trade or try to sign another free agent.
Well, I think it was a very shrewd move by the Mets. They're getting ready to put the Yankees on the back page of the New York Daily News. Well, people don't even read newspapers anymore, so they're getting ready to make the
Oh,
Yankees.
uh, that
Uh,
hurt, John.
oh, I'm
That
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
But you're right. It's
Yeah.
just, I
Well,
mean,
let's say this.
reality hurts.
I still read the paper. I will still
Okay.
every now. I don't tell Kim, but every now and then I'll go and I'll buy a newspaper. But I don't tell her that. Every now and then, just 'cause I just like to. I gotta have a paper in my hand. I get tired of reading my phone, so every now and then I'll go get a newspaper so I can just sit and read. But
Hmm.
there's also one more
God bless
signing.
you.
There's one more signing that the Mets may make. They may sign Clay Holmes, who is a relief pitcher for the Yankees. So we'll see what's going to happen at the end of this week, and we'll go from there. But Gary, as always, we've run out of time. Take us home, my friend.
Well, let's see. What have we got? Well, we have a week before the playoffs, the college football playoffs begin, so this will be a reset. But what we do have, John, Army Navy on Saturday, one of the greatest rivalries of all, and it's right there in your backyard in Landover. I think, John, if you ever have a chance, you've got to go out and see that game. It is a bucket list game, if for nothing else, watching the brigade and the cadets march in. It's the greatest thing in the world. You're going to have President Biden there. You're going to have a whole lot of the Joint Chiefs of Staff,
Mm-hmm.
and really you're going to have the best and the brightest really of college football and college in general. Our future leaders will be playing in that game, and that's about the only game I can really think of consequence right now. Watch that, but there's plenty of hockey, women's basketball, men's basketball, the new number one Tennessee. So come back and see us, but watch us too. We're here every week and we got plenty to talk about.
Hey, first back up on what Gary said. Gary, hopefully you'll be in town next year. Let's make it a point if you are. We go to the Army Navy game together next year. I think
Oh
it's in
yeah.
Baltimore next year. Let's see what we can do with that. Other than that, make sure you watch some sports. Watch some basketball. Watch some football. Watch the NBA. Watch women's college basketball. Watch some hockey. But above all else, just watch sports and come back and see us real soon. Take care.